We are leaving many people behind.
No one left behind.
The laws against sex workers, the laws against transgender, gay people around the world has deprived and made many people vulnerable.
I mean, it's our concern that people with disabilities are being left behind.
One of the reasons that the Global Forum exists is that we've been concerned about the inclusion of men who have sex with men around the world. And there are populations that are left behind because of criminalization, because of violence, because of discrimination and stigma. And those populations include men who have sex with men around the world, but also include transgender people, sex workers, people who inject drugs.
In many countries, trans people aren't recognised. They can have qualifications but not get jobs. And for many, sex work is the only thing that they can do. And HIV is a very high risk for them.
Look, it's pretty clear, I think, particularly from some of the sessions we saw yesterday, that funding to sex worker organisations is way below the level that it should be. So, for example, our peer organisations from around the Asia and Pacific region, very few of them have been funded either by their government through their NACS program or by the Global Fund or other donors. And in fact, about 1% of funding that goes to prevention, so just a part of funding that goes to prevention, less than 1% of that is going to sex worker organisations and directly led programs by sex workers. So that's more than left behind. It's an afterthought that is really quite very troubling.
The health clinics are inaccessible, but also attitudinal barriers as well. The things we find that discriminate against people with disabilities anyway are just applied to health services and the issues around that.
Access to quality services is a big question. Access to medicine is a big question. The patent laws which are becoming so strong because big factories and big manufacturers want their dollars at the cost of lives. So these things are pounding upon that we are really leaving many people behind in this whole epidemic.
So my perspective is if we train a strong peer educational program which is community-based, where persons with disabilities are trained for their abilities and not their disabilities to actually reach out to their fellow peers in the communities. That is the only way we are going to reach people, otherwise we're going to leave them behind.
You know, there seems to also be a taboo around sexuality and people with disabilities. So, you know, in many cases, young people don't get the sort of education, the sex education they need to understand what risky behaviour is. And so, you know, there's in a lot of those cases, people are sort of contracting HIV, before they even realise that there is in fact any danger to them.
I believe that we're leaving behind the uneducated, the ones that we don't reach, and we are also leaving behind the ones that really can make a difference. There are persons with disabilities that are not at a high educational level, but they are not seen and appreciated for their abilities, but they are rather seen for their disabilities.
Of course, marginalized populations are a bit left behind, but at the conferences, I think because I'm gay and I'm one of the marginalized population in general society, but we are encouraged at the conferences to feel that we can do something because we feel the solidarity conferences.
We have the new verdict from the Supreme Court. Now in India it is male, female and the third gender. We have been given the status of the backward class where we have reservations right from the Supreme Court of India. And whether you're operated or you're not operated, but if I feel like a woman, I'm a woman. That the Supreme Court of India says.
So the Japanese government has supported programs, especially medical programs and medical system and the public health system. But the budget has been decreasing, so we need to strengthen the government to feel the importance of supporting HIV/AIDS, not only medical system, but also help prevention and care for community people.
One thing we want is to be owned by our own governments and policymakers, because we are humans and we need protection and love and dignity, which is very important.
Adolescent migrant workers in China work in the factories. They are left behind in the field of HIV prevention and treatment. Also, young sex workers in China. This is not legal. Sex work in selling sex is not illegal in China, so they have not protected very well.
In Zimbabwe, for example, in our support group, the percentage of men is disheartening, because men don't tend to come out in the open, and because of cultural issues and because they don't want to be seen as weak, so they don't attend support groups, and most of them are private pill takers. They don't go to the public hospitals because of fear of stigma. So maybe if that stigma is put behind and men can come out in the open and state that they are HIV positive, I think they can get more help, and then there will be less infections because everyone will be knowing their status.
And trans women around the world have some of the highest rates of HIV in the world. For instance, in Peru, 55% of the trans women are HIV. In parts of India, Mumbai, 68%. Parts of America, it's over 50%. And it's very much a socio-economic thing. And it's where people aren't having their human rights needs met, where there are, I guess, unfair practices around housing, around education, around just being yourself.
We will hold our government accountable for everything, rights from issues of our own rights. The gay rights, which is still an issue, which last year in December we had a horrible Section 377, it was a backlash to the community, but we are fighting for it, and I believe India will be an example for the world.